You'll have to excuse me. There's people outside cutting a tree right by my window, so if you can hear that, I apologize in advance. Despite her loss to President elect Trump in the 2024 White House race, Vice President Harris is Democrats' top choice to be their party's 2028 presidential nominee, according to a new survey. The poll released by Puck News slash Echelon Insights found that 41% of likely Democratic voters would vote for Harris to be atop the Democratic ticket in 2028. California Governor Gavin Newsom placed second at 8%, and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who was in the running to be Harris's vice president this cycle, garnered 7%. Both Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, Harris's vice presidential pick, and Mayor Pete got 6%. Harris lost the 2024 election to Trump earlier this month. The Republicans won all 7 battleground states, secured the popular vote, and made inroads in some Democratic strongholds. In the survey, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez received 4% support, ahead of 5 Democratic governors included in the poll. Michigan's Gretchen Whitmer was at 3%, and Illinois' J.B. Pritzker and Kentucky's Andy Beshear were at 2% apiece, while Colorado's Jared Polis and Maryland's Wes Moore came in at 1%. Senator Cory Booker, who also ran the 2020 Democratic primary, received 2% backing. About 16% of the respondents were unsure about their choice, and about 1% wanted someone else. On the other side of the aisle, Vice President-elect J.D. Vance led the way with 37% when Republican respondents were asked who they would pick in their party's 2028 primary. Former 2024 presidential candidates Nikki Haley and Vivek Ramaswamy were at 9% each. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis was at 8%, while Senators Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, whom Trump nominated to be Secretary of State, garnered 5% apiece, according to the survey. Some 3% wanted somebody else, while 18% were unsure. The poll was conducted November 14th to 18th among 1,010 likely voters. The margin of error was 3.5 percentage points. So, I have said before, there are ways in which I am sympathetic towards Harris. I think anytime someone has to run as the vice president to a unpopular incumbent administration, they're going to be saddled with pretty much all of the blame for, or at least with the baggage that comes with that. But you have to also be pragmatic. The voters rejected her. Like, Hillary is not someone I like at all, and I would say I like Harris significantly more. But then again, I like most things more than Hillary. But the one thing I'll give her credit for is that when she ran in 2008, even though she didn't win the primary, she was competitive. She almost won. And then when she ran in 2016, even though she didn't win the election, she still got a majority of votes. It was conceivable that if she had, I guess, done things in a slightly different way, maybe, she could have taken out Trump. But then when you flip things around and look at Harris, here's someone who runs in the 2020 Democratic primary, and after a brief polling surge gets blown out before even getting to Iowa. So for her 2020 campaign didn't even make it to 2020. Then she has a tenure as vice president where she's put in charge of this really ridiculous, just this issue that she has no control over. And again, that's me being kind towards her. But she runs again and becomes the party's nominee, without any votes being cast for her, and proceeds to waste $1 billion just to not only lose, right, not only not win the election, but also lose the popular vote, which Democrats have been able to pick up in 7 out of the last 8 presidential elections before that. I'm going to say this. The only path I think she could have to mounting a true comeback would be if she were to, and this has been discussed by other people, run for governor of California, stay in that position for 8 years. I don't want to hear anything about 2028. And do an actual job of trying to clean up her home state that Newsom has helped to destroy. Only then, after it's been damn near a decade since she even tried to run for president, could I see her theoretically being able to come back and say, hey, I'm better than ever. And she's young enough to do that. She's only, 60. So she's someone who could run in 2028, 2032, 2036. a lot of these other people, like I think Shapiro is trash for his pro-Israel nonsense. Um, AOC is not going. I can't see her winning a presidential primary. I think if Sanders couldn't win it as issue focused, as popular as he is with people who aren't even in the party, I don't. I don't see her doing it. Again, I could be wrong. I just don't think she has a chance because even if she did catch a little bit of fire, the DNC was a screw anyway. And with most of those other ones, they're also like the only people I think on that list that are really viable. As much, and when I say this, I'm talking strictly in terms of a primary victory, not like, oh, I think they could defeat the Republican in general. Are Shapiro, Newsom, and Whitmer. I don't think Pete is going to try again for a long time. Uh, and the rest of those other people, no, barely anyone knows who they are. Now, again, that could change in the primary, but I don't. I think those three are the most viable ones at this point. When you go over to the Republican side, I'm a little. So, like, I figured Vance would be number one, right? Because he got picked to be Trump's VP. So it's like he's the heir apparent or, the designated successor to Trump. But I guess what I'm a little surprised by is that his margin over the rest of them is really not as big as I thought it would be. To think that Nikki Haley, who every time I go online, I see people talk about she's this, that, and the other. They seem to really despise her in her own party. To see her in second place, again with Ramaswamy, but still in second place, that's wild. And it's not a name recognition thing because Cruz and Rubio both ran for president before. I would say Cruz has a pretty even name recognition with Haley. Maybe it's, I guess the people who don't follow this stuff as regularly aren't as remembering of him, but it's like he of anyone received the most votes again in a primary against Trump, and he's only at 5%. Which I said before, a lot of times that he's one of these people where they have the pedigree of a presidential candidate, right? They went to some Ivy League school. They're a senator. They're a governor. They're a congressman. They are, I guess, well spoken in the general sense. But when you don't stand for anything, and you can't even trick people into thinking that you do, it goes. It's almost like a cancer that spreads on your ambitions. Because whether you like Trump or not, immigration was always his key issue. He never wavered on, send them back, get rid of this person, throw everybody out of here, build the wall. When you're talking about someone like Harris, as kind as I have tried to be to her in some of my coverage, I'm always going to tell you up front that during that 2020 primary, she flipped and switched where one day she was for single payer, then she was for some version of it that would eventually come into play after 10 years. Of course, who could forget her skipping Netanyahu's speech to Congress and then saying that we have this unwavering support for Israel? The lady just can't take a side on this stuff, and it's something that if she does not change, and I don't think she will, it will continue to plague and destroy her ambitions to hold the highest office in the land. But I truly think after this defeat, there's two paths for her. She's either going to run again in 2028 as the former vice president, which is, I think, going to finally close the book on her as someone who can even possibly come back and do this. I think she'll get creamed in an open primary, or she'll stay out of this stuff, stay out of just any of the presidential politics for a while, and either be a commentator like Hillary is, or someone who has some kind of professor or non-office holding position, or try to run for a lower office like governor, because her Senate seat is taken up. So she's really the only path forward would be to try and become governor, which I do think she'd have a decent chance of winning that. But man, it is wild. I guess I shouldn't be too surprised. If I could draw a historical comparison, we thought when it was looking to be Biden versus Trump for the second time in a row, it was going to be like an Adlai Stevenson situation where the party won't get over the person that the voters rejected. And I guess that's maybe what's at play here, where it's like the person lost the last election, but they're still either liked or supported by most members of their party, even, again, even if electoral prospects be damned. But it's like you have, and I'm not even like a fan of most of these people, but like on paper, the Democrats have so many like candidates, including some from the same state, that to go back to the one that just lost, I don't know. It seems pretty weird to me. Like that's why I brought up the Hillary thing because I said at least with her there was the argument of, oh, she almost won the primary and had never like been tested before as the general election candidate. Like Harris has been the general election nominee and lost what many consider to have been a winnable presidential election. So if she couldn't beat the 70-plus-year-old failed former president with 91 criminal charges, I'm supposed to believe that she could take out either his, young VP who's got no reason to, I guess, be burdened by a past record as president if he hypothetically runs in 2028, or it just seems like I would think of any of these people, Trump this cycle would have been the easiest one to defeat, and she couldn't pull it off. So why would the voters of the Democratic Party think, oh yeah, let's give her another chance? I really just I don't understand these people at all. But the Republicans are looking at this and they're like, yes, run again, run again. The only chance she has is to completely overhaul herself. Actually stick to positions that she means. Uh, just take a stand and like not just be concerned about money and careerism. And it's just sad that these people never change. And unfortunately, the voters don't give them much of a reason to either.